doubt.
All right, here we go. Brace yourself. This is a Wrasslin promo. I'm still waiting for somebody to come hard with Dusty Rhodes. With a little big hiney. Rest in peace. We start this hour with Nebrasketball Mike. Hello.
Hello. I'm not going to impersonate Dusty Rhodes. It's not even, I can't even do it.
What about Ted DiBiase?
Here's what we're going to do.
You tell us.
Get the fingers.
Deion Sanders, I'm not coming after your kids. I'm coming after you. I have a question for you that I don't think all those pundits on college football game shows or pregame shows have the guts to answer or ask. And here's what I'm going to ask you. Do you care about college football? Not about your kids. We know you care about your kids. We know that you want your kids to succeed. We know you want your kids to be in the best possible place they can. Do you care about college football? Because here's the thing. You ended up going to Jackson State, an HBCU who was dead broke when you got there. And you made promises to them. And you promised them that you'd be around. And you'd stick around. And you would build that program. Walter Payton went there. Do you understand that? Do you get that? Here's the deal. We know your kids are going to be good. Your kids would have been good had they finished at Jackson State. Your kids would have been good had they finished at Florida State. But you chose Colorado. And you chose Colorado because you probably had the ego to tell yourself that you could go anywhere. And if your best game, Buff Josh, if your Super Bowl is beating Nebraska 4 times, what does that say about your program? You know what it tells me? Your program's going to be dead sleep when he leaves for Florida State for whatever money they got left.
Fair point.
Here's the deal. We don't know if you care about college football. You're a mercenary in the pros. You're a mercenary now. But before you leave with your guns and your people, we're going to tell you something. We're here to take you out. And we're here to take your program out. And we're here to remind Colorado just who the hell they are. It's going to be fun Saturday because we're going to wake up and the whole country going to know, including Emmanuel Acho, who had guts enough to ask us if we knew what a teammate was, because one of our boys had guts to look after Mr. Sanders and tell the media they've been talking too much. Mr. Acho, I thought people in Texas could keep their mouths shut. We keep receipts too, and we're looking for you at the end of this mess. There's your promo, gentlemen.
Mike, there's a lot of people that caught strays during that.
There's a lot to process there.
All right. You going to be okay the rest of the day? That was good.
Was it? I felt like I was everywhere. I didn't get my brain right until the very end.
Would you like to do it again?
No.
Call back next hour.
No.
Okay.
I do want specifics on the whiskey thing.
On the who?
The Whiskey Fest?
Specifics on that. Could somebody tweet me and send me specifics?
Hold on. You're going to go to the Whiskey Fest?
Maybe.
Gary's going to be there.
Holy cow.
Do I need to go to the Whiskey Fest now? Do I need to skip my game?
Do you drink?
Do I drink? My father spent 30 years in the booze business, dude.
Well, how was I supposed to know your dad? I'm sure he's a
You
wonderful
don't know
person.
my dad, but you were with Damon, and Damon brought up my dad all the time.
Was Damon
Come on, dude.
Was Damon in the booze business?
Damon understood, and well,
I get it.
I'm not going to pick on you.
I get it.
Damon always had. When I lost my dad, I let you guys know that,
Yes, you did.
and
I do remember this now.
Damon was always very particular about asking about my dad in the last,
Yeah.
the last 6 months.
Mike, I do
Before he
remember.
died,
I do remember that.
I miss Damon. By the way, Damon, have some fun calling the game. You belong up there.
It's crazy, Mike. You know what? He's listening to the show right now.
I hope he
Know
is.
it for a fact.
He's got his own show, and I know that. But this is personal
It is.
because Dion's thinking he can go anywhere. He
Yeah.
doesn't even care about his alma mater.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about Florida State. They're going to call begging with him to come back after this year.
All right. Mike, call back next hour.
Why?
Try it again.
Dude, really?
Yeah. Yeah, next hour.
It's called you dude twice now.
If not, call back on Monday.
Bruh.
Hello? What did you just do? All right, Mike, we got to move on. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was well done. Enjoy tomorrow. I know it means a lot. It's personal
too.
to you as well.
You too.
All right.
That was a Bigelow sigh.
Yeah, we sent Jacob. We sent Nebrasketball Mike a sixer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Bean?
I do remember now. His dad, well known in this community, who was in the booze business.
Let's let it go. In the booze business, dude.
Okay. All right, just come down from that.
I didn't know.
There
so I know now.
was different.
This is
different ground was covered.
Don't mean to put any pressure on Lynn, but Lynn is next up. Good morning, Lynn. Thanks for the phone call.
Let me tell you something, brother. We've got prime time coming into town, the big fraud that he is, with his nose in the air. And his two little snot kids standing beside him where the only letters they know are N-I-L. I've got some news for you, Sanders brothers. The only thing NIL stands for is not in Lincoln this weekend.
Yeah!
You've got Dylan Riola dropping bombs from the sky like you've never seen before. And I got to tell you, you better be buying a crematorium for Sanders because he's going to be planted 6 feet under Memorial Stadium this weekend. I've got a 35-21 victory for all you little Huskers out there, because what you gonna do when you've got Dylan Riola, the black shirts, Matt Rule, and 90,000 coming down on you?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yeah.
Nicely done, Lynn. Thank you very much.
As a little Hulkamaniac myself back in the day, I really, really appreciate
This was Monday.
back in the day.
Thank you very much.
That was good, Lynn. All right.
That was very good.
That's the tone. Let's
It
go.
takes a lot of confidence, just like the football team in Lincoln, to come on the air and do that.
Yep.
Will Compton, by the way, you guys want to guess the number of takes that did not include swearing in all of the hype videos that he has recorded to be played before every home game?
I'm sure they all got re-recorded. So I'm going to say 0.
Actually, NIL, NIU, or whatever, the UNI. Sorry, I could see him being a little more calm just because.
I wish they didn't
Pace
bleep out
yourself.
when he said ass. I felt like they could let that one go.
Not big fans of Requiem for a Dream.
I know it's
Well played.
If you know, you know.
It's Colorado week.
Hey, it could be happening at 10:30 tomorrow night.
Hey, isn't it? So we talked a lot about the quarterbacks. Let's talk about the big uglies.
Keep
When's the
saying.
when was when I'm doing this a lot this week. When was the last time? Because at some point the narrative has to change. Okay, you have to move on from, hey, you know what? You've done this to me in the past too. The standard is different, the mood is different, and the results are different. Now you're going to win football games like this when you have better coaching, you have better talent, and you know what? Honestly, last time in a Power 4 versus Power 4, previously Power 5 versus Power 5, that on both sides of the line of scrimmage, Nebraska was the better team with the big uglies. How this is rare.
Yeah.
I don't know if it says more about Nebraska or more about Colorado, but you have to change the standard. You have to make the standard, change the narrative that Nebraska football is turning the corner. They're going to win games like this when they have opportunities on a big stage and they don't tinkle down their leg, okay? Instead,
great word.
They're able to, in the middle of the street, spell their name in cursive, okay, instead of tinkling down the leg.
Oh, yeah.
I did that.
That does take a talent.
I was dared when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty good. You got to have the hip movement.
And a short name, too.
But to change where, okay, you're playing a football team where your coaching is better, your talent is better across the board.
Mm-hmm.
You are better on the line of scrimmage. And you know what? You might win a game because you got to play out of special teams. If you do something like that and it comes to fruition, and when they shut off the scoreboard, you have more points, you started to make that the standard. You got to then start stacking those. But I said, this is a game of where do you stand? Yeah. What kind of program you are in these environments, and when you get squeezed, shows up at 9:45 on Saturday night.
Well, and this is...
But you have to start somewhere, and I mean, I know we're all hesitant because we've seen this before, and they've just... And people in Nebraska's a laughingstock. Well, you got an opportunity. Because if you don't win this football game, people are going to ignore Nebraska football nationally until the end of October. And by then, they may not pay attention to them. They're like, same old Nebraska.
This is where I truly feel confident in the attention to details and the preparation. And that's not just for this particular game in general, but the season itself, too. Like the coaching advantage that I truly believe Nebraska has. And that's not just Matt Rule versus Deion Sanders. It's Matt Rule setting a tone for these type of moments where you feel like Nebraska is going to be better suited for that, but you bring up the trenches, okay, with Terrence Knighton and Donovan Raiola. Look at Tony White as a coordinator. Look at even the collaboration that I think with Marcus Satterfield and Glenn Thomas of finding guys that fit the personnel and vice versa, where the personnel fits the guys, they're fitting the scheme, that has to matter in this game. And I think it will matter in this game. I mean, I truly do think a lot of the players on the field, and especially with two in particular on Colorado's side of it, which I don't think anybody is going to argue are the two best players on the field going into this game. Now, will it play out that way? We'll see. But the coaching matchup, if it's being discussed, will go as far as Prime versus Matt Rule. It's so much more than that. I mean, this is where I look at the continuity and the lack thereof on one side compared to the other side, too.
Yes. If you were having a draft of players in this game and you were drafting Colorado's roster and you said, okay, in terms of the most important players for Colorado to win, your first pick probably would be Shedeur.
Yes.
If you were doing this for Nebraska, the number one pick for Nebraska that is the most important player to win this kind of game, it would be.
I'm still going Dylan Raiola.
Okay.
Yeah, I because that
I'm not opposed to that, but I like that's not a bad pick at all.
Yeah.
I would go. I might go with a guy in the trenches, but I'm not opposed to Raiola because he will have an important part in this game. But I don't immediately think the quarterback right away of the guy to win the game. And I don't know if that's just the way I'm looking at how this game needs to be won, or maybe it's a good sign for Nebraska. You have a quarterback, but man, that rush end, that nose tackle, that defensive tackle, that left tackle might be more important. Man, if you could get to that point, you might be cooking with some peanut oil instead of immediately going like skill guys.
Well, and that's why I think what has changed from a year ago is this was the game, and it's kind of weird to think that in a game that Nebraska got beaten pretty good, especially in the second half, that we saw it in the Minnesota game with that defensive front, the way they rotated, and they were successful in shutting down the run, and then in the Colorado game, where between Nash and then Ty missing the first half of that Colorado game, but then playing in the second half, we saw what he did against Minnesota. And then the rotation, this was also a huge Cam Lenhart game in the Colorado game. And remember, then he gets kind of banged up. So you've got, and even Princewell, you've got guys that are functioning and they're rotating and you're bringing fresh bodies on. It's a huge part of this. But I don't know if I can zero in on one guy and say, on the defensive line, that is, if we're just using that as an example or part of the conversation. Left tackle's a big one too. And in a purpose of drafting, as far as what you know the importance would be, that would be right up there without question. But I also go back to what has changed for Nebraska and what gives people hope. A lot of the same pieces are in place from a year ago with the major exception of quarterback, where you've upgraded. So the difference, in my opinion, in games like this that can come down to one score, if it comes to that, where have you elevated yourself the most that you can be on the winning end of that? To me, it's quarterback.
So this is from Corn Forever on Twitter. He says, you have to go quarterback on both sides. The better question is, other than quarterback, who is?
See, this is where I would get into...
You might go like a combination of, you might have to do defensive backs for Nebraska because they're going to have to run for a while. Is Nebraska good enough in the back end that they can cover wide receivers for about 5 to 6 seconds? Because they're going to be forced to.
Yep. This is where I think Tommy Hill is a good one, and I also think an Isaac Gifford is a big one.
This is a fascinating discussion about, after the first level, who is the next important part of Nebraska's success to winning. And I'm now starting to see this in the email box. It's kind of all over, whether it be defensive linemen or defensive backs, or now we are getting, Ed writes in, Alvano. I mean, special teams. At some point, like, can Nebraska win a game where they get a special teams contribution? Where you go, you know what? Check that box. Nebraska won the special teams battle. Instead of, well, it'd be nice if they had 3 phases. This is really a game, if you put in all this work and you've talked all this stuff and you said, hey, we're better here, 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 and here. And, I mean, Rule is not one of those, we had our best practice of the day or the best practice of the week. He did say that the way they approached it, they were better this week.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you need to be validated. Saturday night's a chance to be validated because you're on a big stage where Nebraska in the past, the old Nebraska, hasn't come through. And they've let people down, and you're like, what happened? You go back to the drawing board. I mean, what happens if the new Nebraska emerges? What a great opportunity.
And what does that look like, too?
Yeah, that's a great point. What does that look like?
What does that look like? And that's where I think this game allows you, if things go well, if things do go well, we had glimpses of it last week, but I know you consider the opponent, and you have to. And most every team that wasn't playing a top 25 matchup had to do that in week number 1. You can only go so far as to decipher, okay, what this team can be. But the stage, guys, it's not lost on us that this is a 4-8 Colorado team from a year ago that had Shedeur Sanders, that had Travis Hunter, even though he was hurt for a good chunk of the season, and had a lot of the same parts there. But given the stakes of this game, the external circus that makes its way in under the lights, and what feels like a must-win game from the standpoint of being able to validate what has been building since the end of last season, going in from spring to summer to now, that's the importance of this thing. But if you are able to cover, this allows people to go fully in. And also, what I would imagine is going to be a very balanced offensive attack with big-time passing plays, big-time opportunities in that side of it in the passing game. That's where you start looking at the new Nebraska and thinking, man, that's a winning formula.
That's okay. It's okay to say Nebraska needs to win this game.
They do.
Don't poo-poo it.
No, they do.
Nebraska needs to win this football game. They need to win. Colorado would like to win.
Yep.
Nebraska needs to win. When you wake up on Sunday, the team that loses, if it's Colorado, that's okay. They'll move on. They got Colorado State. They're 1-1. They expected to be 2-1 through the first 3 games. They were an underdog. Nebraska loses this game on Sunday. Do you go, No, do not run away from it. Nebraska needs to win the football game on Saturday for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
Mike Schaefer will allude to those coming up here in about 25 minutes. There's so much about Saturday night, and we've been there before, but at some point you can't always be there before.
Yeah.
At some point you have to go, you know what, this is the standard. We're going to play in games that generate a lot of excitement, a lot of eyeballs, and you know what, we're going to be prepared, and there's going to be times where we're the better team on the field.
Yep.
And now it's time to prove it. Saturday night's a great opportunity. Because you'll be tested.
Yeah.
You'll be tested in ways that you won't be tested for a while on this schedule. All right. There's a little rant there. It was not my wrestling promo.
No, you got better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to shoot my load.